So next up in our Chironomid series is Don's Red Butt Chironomid. So another fairly beginner tie. I guess it'd be an intermediate tie. And you know, I love to tie this on a size 14 hook. A lot of times I'll tie it on a 16, but I like this one on the size 14. So materials you need. Again, a size 14 2x long hook is ideal. I like the black nickel beads. Matte black is also good, but the black nickel is good. We're going to use the white antron for the gills. You want two thread colors. I've got a 12-watt red thread, which is quite nice, and it is a wax thread because I like a little more color to it. And of course the body is going to be with our black thread. Now for the rib, I like a 0.2 millimeter silver wire. You can vary the wires, but I like the silver for this one. And I've got a 0.5 millimeter strip of anti-static bag, just for the highlight of another rib, which really sets off the black. So let's get on with the tie. We're going to quickly just tie in right behind the eyelet, always to start. I'm going to put on our antron. Always the antron makes really nice gills. You know, everybody uses different materials, but I really like the antron. You know, the old school way, we used to actually wrap ostrich hurl in there and use the ostrich hurl, which I'm sure some people still use. But I like the antron. It's just personal preference. A couple of wraps just to hold that in place, cut off that excess, and bring that bead up. And the big end of the bead towards the eyelet. That way you can get all that covered. Okay, so always the big end of the bead towards the eyelet. Start with our red thread because we are going to form a butt. And as we bring the thread down, we're just going to put on our silver wire. And I always tend to put the wire on first because then it can create a nice even body. If you tie the rib in or the wire in after, sometimes it tends to be a little bulkier. Whereas if you do it as you're bringing your thread down, it just makes for a thinner body, which is what we're trying to accomplish with the chironomid. So essentially I go right down to the bend. I'm going to take about 5 to 6 turns behind the hook just to form behind the wire, just form a small red butt, and then bring that red thread back up and hold the wire off for the next phase. Now before we tie in our black thread, we're actually going to form or put on our next rib, which is our anti-static bag. And we're just going to tie it in and bring it back and go right down to where you tied the wire in. And then bring your red thread back up. Now we're going to tie in the body. Now there's two ways you can do this. Sometimes I'll actually take a black Pantone pen. I've got a red and black one here, and I'll actually color it up and make it real dark and transition the color that way. But this time I'm actually going to whip it off, whip finish like I did, and change over and change the thread and just get the color variation that way. So now we've transitioned, put in our black thread, cut off our excess, and now we're just going to bring it back and slowly, build a bit of a tapered body. And it's totally dependent on how you want to taper it. I like to go back and leave, you can see I'm just going to leave a few gaps. I've got a red back on there. I'm going to leave a few gaps there, and I'm going to fill in a little more black as I go. And I, a lot of times, like to leave it a little bit thinner. I won't fill in as much as a lot of people. A lot of people really like to fill in a thick body right up to that bead. I like a lot of times just to leave it just a bit thinner. So we're just going to taper up a little bit until we get to the bead and right about there. So very thin taper, and I've got a transition point now. I've got a real red butt, then a little bit of red blending into black, and then black. So now we're going to take about 6-7 wraps of our wire. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, There's 7. And tie off behind the bead. And again, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're going to get 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 5. It's all good. Just pull the wire and just rotate it. Now, you want to follow that wire up with your with this anti-static bag. But before I start following the wire up, I like to take a turn behind, right, to kind of cover up a little bit of that red, and then follow that wire up. And just follow it up as best you can. You're going to cover up a lot of the black thread, and that's what we're trying to do, trying to create a nice glossy body with some dull black in there until you get to the bead, and tie off right behind the bead. And cut off your excess. Now what I'm going to do is do a quick whip. Now a lot of times people will finish with a black thorax, which is just fine. It blends in real nice with the body. You've got your red transitioning into a black body. But I'm going to finish with the red thread right behind the bead. So I'm going to wrap in my red thread there. And then just take some, if you got a little excess there, just push forward and take a few wraps and create just a nice red thorax. Now when we coat this, it's going to really become dull, and that's what we want, really a blood red color. And take a few whips. Cut off your excess as close as you can get it. Bring your gills back. I usually cut it right near the top of the bead. There you've got a nice little gills up top. Now we're going to take our coating material, the UV coat. And a lot of people don't coat their fly. I prefer to coat. I think they last longer. They can get a little beat up. Plus the color really gets set off nicely with the coating. And just smooth it around. Try to get your entire hook, especially up by the bead. And once you've got it well coated, as we've shown in the past, just kind of smooth it out and get rid of all that excess. Just bring it back and forth. It blends real nice. Keep rotating your hook. And it's nice when you have a rotary vise. You can move it around a little bit. Get rid of any thick spots like that. And then hit it with a good UV lamp. I mentioned before on another video one of these real high-end UV lamps. Of course, Gulf makes, they make these high UV lamps. They make really good coatings also, a little thicker coatings, some thinner coatings. But that just really seals it up nice. There's the Gulf lamp if you want a real good one. And that's really it for the red butt. You can vary how much of a red butt you have. Sometimes people tie way down into the far end of the the hook to really give it a long red butt, short, just really good colors to combine. You can see how blood red this thread goes. It's really nice and bright like this, but once you coat it, it goes to a real nice bright red. So again, another fly you got to have for your box is Don's Red Butt Chironomid. To watch all our latest Sport Fishing on the Fly episodes and to order Sport Fishing on the Fly merchandise, head to www.sfotf.ca. And if you would like to book an adventure like this one shown, head to ontheflyadventures.ca and book yourself the trip of a lifetime.